thanks.
And apologies for being late a little bit, Stefano.
Okay, well, at the moment I cannot share any screens, so.
You can. Oh,
okay, now I can.
Yeah, just.
There we go. Right. Wonderful. Well, the title of this talk is Beauty as Spontaneity, neither design nor chaos. It's something that I started to work on last year during the first wave of the pandemic, and I needed, some reason to escape from reality and think about positive things, right? Well, let's try with the relevance, I think, of this talk. First of all, I don't know if you are familiar with the theory of spontaneous order, right? But this theory was applied, and it is applied to cities, but not so much when it comes to aesthetics and beauty. So this is somehow a new bridge connecting the two things, right? The two topics. Then I think also the concept of beauty, even though we don't stress enough, is connected, highly connected to ethics and justice, as I will try to demonstrate. And my main thesis of this talk is that what actually is considered as aesthetically valuable derives from the possibility of multiple individuals to express themselves in space. So it is about the possibility of people to express their aesthetic wills in space, especially when these people are highly concentrated in space. Of course, there are many limits in my talk. You will discover them. I structured this talk in 3 parts. In the first part, I will focus on the concept of beauty and how it was applied, both in philosophy and city design. I will present 2 types of order and maybe 2 types of beauty for cities, and then some insights and implication of beauty as spontaneity. Well, why beauty? Well, the concept of beauty is employed in numerous aspects of life. Sculpture, architecture, paintings, machines. If we're lucky, we use this concept many times during our day, right, in our daily basis. However, it is difficult to define what is beautiful, right? So we need to refer to the greatest. And I pick up and I choose to refer to Umberto Eco, the philosopher. He says beautiful is something that we like, and at the same time conform to some ideal principle of the good. So beautiful is not only something that we like and appreciate, but also something that corresponds to some our values, deep values. And of course, it's something that vary in time and in geography. For Kant, even though this book was not the most successful, beauty is a subjective universal judgment, okay? This means that, of course, it's something subjective, it's something that experienced at the individual level, but at the same time, it's something that we share in an intersubjective way, right? So he make a distinction between free and adherent beauty. Adherent beauty is a concept of beauty that emerges in society and to which we try to stick with the passage of time. Indeed, it is since ancient Greeks that there is a classical concept of beauty is associated with order and harmony, the good, against or in contrast something that is chaotic, chaos, the bad, right? And this contrast has pervaded the images of our world ever since. We can see that in many fields. We can think, for instance, of the Italian painter Ambrogio Lorenzetti and the allegory of the good and bad government, but we can also think of the ideal city. So there is a classic idea of beauty, and we try and we tend to stick to this idea all the time, especially when it comes to city, right? When we think that beauty is something that derives from the well-educated ends of a good city designer. And these ideas still exemplifying a certain classic concept of beauty also in city design if we go through history. Indeed, according to Ackermann, harmony and the like concept of order became pivotal in the history of later urban thought, and after Lynch, as you well know, the central idea of good urban design, according to many, is spatial legibility, which is a clear organization of the built environment. But at the same time, hardly legible cities are often appreciated as well. So also something that appears as chaos is quite appreciated, usually by people. Indeed, as the philosopher Nigel Taylor aptly underscored, Almost everybody agrees that the old Venice is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and yet it is an illegible townscape. When we go to Venice, we like the unpredictability of Venice, the details on the facades, the flowers, the smells, the canals. The same happened in history many times, but for instance, also in Naples when Benjamin went there, and he was surprised by Naples and the porosity of Naples, or when Goethe went there and says that Naples was a paradise. Obviously, they were both referring to the legible timescape of Naples. In short, not only spatial legibility, but other factors as well. For instance, Norbert Schulz will say character and sense spirit of a place. Alexander would say wholeness, adaptional complexity, and quality without a name. So the question is, how can harmony and order be generated in city? And how can things like sense of a place, character, adaptional complexity emerge? Well, and here we refer to the spontaneous order theory, and mainly to Hayek, even though he was not the only one promoting these ideas and concepts. Even though order is usually associated with authoritarian views, it can also be generated in the absence of central coordination. So he makes a clear distinction, mainly, especially in economic system and social system. So I'm trying to create a bridge also in the physical system there is a difference between a made order, something that is designed and then imposed in the system, and a grown order, an order then develops over time according to an uncountable number of actions. So again, time is the issue. In short, order and harmony can be generated by rational design, but also spontaneously, which means not centrally coordinated action. Obviously, these are two extremes. In reality, we have something that is more like a degree, okay, or a trade-off between design and spontaneity. So in cities, when it comes to made design order, it's usually a type of order that it is easily legible. And I will show you some example of recently developed area in Milan, where, in my opinion, not only in my opinion, something is missing, like, for instance, character, spirit of a place, adaptability, especially what is missing is individual expression in space, something that creates beauty also. So this is Rubattino, Pompeo Leoni, Bicocca, all well designed by very famous architects, by the way. But city, as I tried to stress in this very short presentation, need character, aspect, and situation that go beyond the mere sphere of design, which means life, something that is unpredictable. So city need to provide a certain space for people to express themselves in order to create something that can be aesthetically appreciated, okay? Also, and not only. But of course, here I'm not saying that everything that is spontaneous is beautiful. There are several examples of spontaneous orders that create something that is ugly or not appreciated aesthetically. But indeed, character, sense, and spirit of a place derive from individuals and life. So let's try to move towards beauty as spontaneity. First of all, beauty as spontaneity is an ideal, okay, that envisions certain values and specific ideas of the good, as I said with Eco in the very beginning. So in my case, for instance, I value, like many others, individual dignity, individual expression, and so on and so forth. And in this case, if you want to pursue or trigger beauty as spontaneity, in this case, the shape of the built environment is not and cannot be an end in itself, but it's merely a means to trigger complex life, okay? So it is not enough to create from scratch something that is beautiful from a physical perspective. This is no sense and it is insufficient. A built environment should create the condition for people to express themselves in space. So I thought of three minimum conditions in order to have beauty as spontaneity or to pursue beauty as spontaneity. First of all, we should think of adequate space for creative action and individual expression over time, which means having variety and diversity as a natural result, but also to recognize individual dignity and the right to express oneself. Second, we should pursue as urban designer and planner the participation of the highest number of individuals possible in the adaptation of the built environment. When I say participation, I don't mean to sit around the table, but to give people the space to act and create something directly. Third, the presence of a minimal institutional framework that protects the collective dimension of cities, for instance, certain public rules on private spaces, as well as collective spaces and services. And from that perspective, we should stress that for a long time in history, the role of municipality was mainly that of providing urban codes, so simple rules on private property, plus creating public spaces, and we stopped to do that in the 20th century. So I think we can also learn quite a lot by studying the historical cities. Of course, with this presentation, I'm not saying that forms of design order are irrelevant or cannot generate aesthetic values. For instance, think again of the case of Naples. Probably we couldn't appreciate to the same extent the spontaneity and intricacy of Naples without certain well-designed squares like Piazza del Plebiscito or the very nice street of Via Caracciolo. So spontaneity and design should not be seen in contraposition, of course, and we know that, but as complementary. And what is relevant is that this complementarity is multiscalar, and we are in Pachino, a small city in Sicily, where only the main square in the middle and the main grid were designed and developed by the municipality, and then a lot of freedom was left to individuals, households to create their buildings. And you can see that their aesthetical will is manifested also to the point that they start to customize sidewalks, okay? And this is this competition of different people who try to improve their environment that at the very end, in a process of beneficial competition, we create beauty in city. And I want to conclude with an example from the city where I'm talking right now, which is Dortmund, where I work, which is the Kreuzviertel. Dortmund is not considered to be a wonderful city or a beautiful city. Actually, people never suggest you to move to Dortmund. But at the same time, there are certain parts of the city that are considered to be beautiful by many. If you ask a person from Dortmund, which is the coolest or the most beautiful part of the city, he or she will obviously say the Kreuzviertel. And if you study the genesis and the peculiarity of this neighborhood, you will find out that this is the area of Dortmund where there is the highest concentration of private property, which means having multiple individuals in the position to act today, but also in the creation of this part of the city. And it is the area of the city with the smallest blocks, which means obviously create more permeability, porosity, and more interaction. So something that create and generate life. So to conclude, I would like to use this quotation from Noyes, a quite old quotation, but something that I like. Art is not remote from common life, after all. In its highest manifestation, art is life at its best. Thank you.